You wouldn't do it here. You're going to run. All right. Well, thanks, Eric, again for that presentation. And hopefully you're not a Roll Tides fan, because that was a pretty rough night last night for the Alabama faithful. Our next presentation is Chris Tayo. He's manager of security services and enterprise architecture at Valvoline. And his presentations on Tolkien would have been a great CISO. Chris has been working in information security since 2008, when he started his career at GE, in charge of security event detection and incident response. He held various roles in areas of security architecture and data loss prevention before joining Ashland in 2014 to help form a new security team as a security architect. Now he is with Valvoline and has oversight over security architecture and services for designing, implementing, and maintaining security solutions. And Chris resides in Cincinnati. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Good morning. So the title of my talk here, Tolkien would have been a great CISO. I believe this is true, and it goes really hand in hand with a lot of the stuff that Eric covered. So thank you very much for that introduction. Pardon me, I'm losing my voice a little bit, so if I come in and out, just be warned. So a little bit of background on Tolkien and who he was, for those of you that aren't aware, but for those of you that are, a little bit more information. So Tolkien was born 1892, very long time ago. He very quickly, at an early age, got into language, linguistics, fascinated by the subject, ended up becoming a professor of Anglo-Saxon at Oxford. That was from the years 1925 to 1945, and then he went on from there to become a professor of English literature and language at Oxford as well. Many of you will know him for his works The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings. Oddly enough, The Hobbit, which was published in 1937, that was the very first year of the first programmable computer, the Z1. Then fast forward a little bit, 1954, 1955, that's when Lord of the Rings was published, and those works then became mainstream. 1960s, everyone was really fascinated by them and the stories that he told. Tolkien passed away 1973, which was the year that TCP was designed, and Ethernet first was invented out at Xerox, Palo Alto. So just to give you a frame of reference of when his life was. Now, what the heck does that have to do with a CISO and security? Well, I would make the claim that a lot of the things that Tolkien was good at, as Eric already articulated, are a lot of the things that a CISO needs to be good at in order to be successful. So if you look at the landscape that all of us in the industry, whether you're a CISO, whether you're an analyst, this is basically your view of the world from your company at a very, very high level. Your company's in the middle of this tumultuous place called the internet, where most packets are bad, and the things that come at you are scary and unknown. There are these bunch of red dots on a screen. They're a dashboard that your SIM is showing you. It's all this information, all these whiz-bang metrics that you're supposed to make sense out of. As a CISO, you have the job of taking this and making it make sense to the board of directors, maybe to the CIO, depending on who you report to, maybe to the CEO. It's a very daunting task. Now, we have a lexicon, we have a language that's already been created to do this for us. But as Eric already articulated, that language doesn't translate so well. So how do you do it? Well, I would argue that you have to have stories. You have to be able to write your own story for your organization. And that's another thing that pairs well with Tolkien. He said that the invention of a language is the foundation. The language is nothing more, or the story is nothing more than the world that the language can live in. So if you take that view of this world, you've got the language. You know how to describe threats and threat vectors and vulnerabilities and exploits. But what does that mean for you and your organization? That is something that Valvoline, Integral Defense, all your companies you struggle with every day. So where do you go? Where do you go to start to write that story? Where do you get your information? Where do you get your data? Well, you can go to vendors. You can go to products. You can go to the internet and do a Google search. You're going to find all these different whiz-bang metrics about the threats that are out there, and they're going to describe them in certain ways. They're going to have, again, another language of description. Sometimes maybe there's a story there, and let's talk about some of those things. So in the world of Tolkien, we have the image of Gandalf, got the Balrog coming up out of the bottom. It's going to attack the people that are coming across. Gandalf stands in the way to intercept that transmission that goes over. I would argue that's Mage Cart. Mage there, intercepting the transmission. Tolkien was ahead of the time. The other one, I would say, if you would like to reference, maybe Heartbleed. Remember when Frodo got pierced by the sword? Yes, okay. Ringwraith, Spectre. Meltdown, why did he go to Mount Doom? Anybody remember? To melt the ring, of course. My favorite one, though, is probably if you look at the relationship of Sam and Frodo during the entire trilogy of the movies, WannaCry. Yeah, lots of tears throughout that process. But you can go to the vendors and you can go out there and find these things. Tolkien was ahead of his time. He knew what was going on. But ultimately what we found is that the vendors fall short of the story. They're going to give you all of the data. In a lot of ways, they give you the information that you need to pull in. It's why APIs are popular. It's why security people that are good at this stuff, give me the data. I'll do what I need to do with it. Give me the analysis. I'll work with it. I'll massage that into what I need. And that's what the guys at Integral Defense have done. That's one of the things that really drove us, is telling this story, using the data that we could get from all the tools out there, and not viewing the tools and the vendors as the end of the road. So when you go out there and you go to have this conversation with your CIO, your board, your CEO, this is kind of the view. You've got all these things that are question marks to them. You have to describe them. What is the story going to be? So for Integral Defense, what we did is we had this problem. We understood enough about the threats, but we had to figure out how to tell the story. So give you an example of one of the stories that was told recently, and it talks about why vendors aren't the end-all be-all. They are part of the solution. Is that our CISO was in a discussion, and one of the things that he was told from an insurance provider, cyber risk insurance, you have to have it these days, they told him that the number of vendors and tools that he had in his arsenal helped define the threat of the business. That's how they normally measure. Then he told them the story of what we do with the data, of how we massage it, how we analyze it, how we respond. Then they completely changed their mind. They said, wow, we've been looking at it all wrong. We've been looking at it completely wrong. So let's talk about what that approach is. So what Integral Defense did is we looked at that problem and said, okay, we have data, we have all these things, we know how to analyze it. So capable bunch of people. But how do you get through all that information so quickly so that you can continue to write your narrative along the way? That's the challenge for a lot of people, is I have all this data. What do I do with it? How do I manage it? How do I get rid of false positives? How do I go through and get some, nuggets of storyline that I can go take up and talk about? Well, the area we started with was phishing. What bigger story is there than all of the constant barrage of things you're getting at your front gate through phishing? So we wrote a platform that hooked into Office 365, and did the analysis. That was kind of the genesis of what we now call ACE, which is one of our major platforms now. And what it developed into from there was what a lot of you would relate as the SOAR platform, security orchestration, automated response. That's what it would liken to now. But we created this a couple years ago, and it completely changed the way that we were able to quickly get rid of the false positives, look at all the information that was there, and then do something with it. We were very quickly able to take several phishing attacks from just being, oh, yep, they were stopped, or, oh, yeah, we removed the email from the inbox, to, no, actually, it was these people from Nigeria. Here's their Instagram account. Here's who they attacked and why and when, and tell that story that was much more than just, oh, yeah, we stopped some malware. Antivirus cleaned it up. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It was a really great experience, and something that we actually got so excited about that we decided to turn it into this integral defense thing. So one of the things, for hearkening back to Tolkien here, he was big on Finnish language for whatever reason. Fascinated with Finnish language. He found a Finnish grammar book, and he described it as walking into a completely full wine cellar of all these different wines that no one had ever tasted before. That's kind of the level of excitement we had as we were creating what became Integral Defense. So I've talked a lot of, around the tools and what they are, but we invite you to go out and take a look for yourself. Integral Defense, completely open source. We took everything surrounding the ACE project and we open sourced it. So you can go out there, take a look at it. We look at it as automating the ordinary so you can get to the extraordinary. So you can get to the tale that you need to tell to sell it to your peers, the people that don't care about security but should, and up to your boardroom in order to continue to be able to be relevant and present in the conversation. So integraldefense.com, it's basically the gateway to our GitHub page. We've got a lot of different tools out there. We continue to develop, and we offer it up to the community. For anyone that's capable, that has a need to help automate some of their analysis and some of their incident response, and hook in all those pieces of data that you have in order to tell a better story. So I'll close with one last thing. There was a Newsweek article, I believe it came out in 2007, talking about Tolkien. And they said he didn't invent fantasy, but he defined it for millions. And that, in my idea, as CISOs in this area, in this day and age, that is now the call that we have, is how are we going to define security? Are we going to do it ourselves? Are we going to put in the hard labor and have fun with it and tell those stories? Or are we going to just let it go to the internet stream of consciousness, the vendors that tell all and be all? Or are we going to use them as the tools that they are actually trying to be and use that for the benefit of everybody and elevate the game of security in 2019 to come? Thank you.
So, it's time for Q&A. I like the last graphic. You mentioned this is available on GitHub, and I know you're not getting really tactical with this today, but is there a list of some of the other? You mentioned you'd integrated Office 365. What else? Or what other things?
Yeah. There is a ton of information and a lot of good videos. Actually, for those that are in Cincinnati, Brian Ashleman and Sean McFeely are there. So if you're in Cincinnati, you can, maybe if you have time, pick their brain on the details behind it. But we've integrated basically we're trying to open source everything that we've done to pull data into the ACE engine. So one of those things is email. We've got email parsing. We hooked it in with Office 365 through their journaling feature. So that's how you would ingest email. It's out of band. So that's one of the nice things about it is you don't get in the way of the email. You're able to just kind of siphon it off. Another one that we've worked a lot on because we really believe in what the product allows you to do is Carbon Black. We've got some automation that we've built in through Carbon Black. We've also recently released, I believe it's out there, some scripts on how to pull down data out of the Microsoft Cloud. So Azure information, if you're Office 365 customers, you can get a lot of information from there. But admittedly, the stock APIs from other products don't always catch everything consistently. So we rewrote one. Netscope is another tool that we've also integrated with, and we have some libraries out there that we've pulled data down from as well. So those are a few. Brian and Sean can go into much more detail than I can if you're in Cincinnati or if you want to talk to us afterwards. Any other questions?
Questions from the team, any of the other cities? Indianapolis is awfully quiet. No pressure. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.